All right, stand by. 10 seconds.
camera one.
Count.
Ready, camera two.
And cue talent.
2,
One.
1, roll for record.
Hillary says she's sorry. I'm John Phillips, and this is The Rundown. Yes, presidential candidate Hillary Clinton told ABC News' David Muir she's sorry and, quote, takes responsibility for the email fiasco that's all but sunk her campaign. If you can call repeatedly saying there's no scandal, it's all a plot against her, and she didn't do anything wrong, taking responsibility. Here's what she had to say. Quote, what I had done was allowed. It was above board. But in retrospect, certainly as I look back at it now, even though it was allowed, I should have used 2 accounts, one for personal, one for work-related emails. That was a mistake. I'm sorry about that. I take responsibility. And I'm trying to be as transparent as I possibly can, not only to release 55,000 pages of my emails, turn over my server. No mention, will you notice, of the tens of thousands of emails she deleted. She went on to throw everyone she worked with completely under the bus, saying they knew that she was using private email. Quote, everybody in the government I communicated with, and that was a lot of people, knew I was using a personal email. But I'm sorry that it has, raised all of these questions. I do take responsibility for having made what is certainly not the best decision, end quote. Muir then threw her a colossal softball toward the end of the interview, asking, quote, I want to know in your most private of moments, is there ever an instance where you ask yourself, why am I doing this again? Hillary used the opening to talk about her dead mother and, of course, got choked up, saying, quote, my mother had a terrible childhood. She was abandoned by her parents. She was rejected by her grandparents. She was literally working as a housemaid at the age of 14. And she told me every day, you've got to get up and fight for what you believe in, no matter how hard it is. I can have a perfectly fine life not being president. I'm going to fight for all the people like my mother who need somebody in their corner, and they need a leader who cares about them again. So that's what I'm going to try to do, end quote. Astute observers may notice this is suspiciously similar to a moment in the 2008 campaign when she got all choked up and emotional and boosted her slipping numbers enough to win New Hampshire. But tears might not save Clinton this time, because we learn one State Department staffer, Brian Pagliano, plans to plead the fifth rather than testify about her email before Congress. We also learn that he was being paid directly by the Clintons while he was working for the State Department. Talk about a conflict of interest. Senators are considering offering him immunity to spill his guts, but that only works if he's as scared of Chuck Grassley as he is of the Clintons. Fat chance. So Hillary's saying she's sorry, tearing up for ABC, and even dancing on Ellen. But will any of this be enough to make people trust her? To explore this question and much, much more, we're joined by our pal, PJTV contributor and author Scott Ott from his home studio in Dallas, Texas. And next to me in toasty Southern California, stand-up comic and PJTV contributor Stephen Cruiser. Cruiser, when Bill Clinton was president and Dick Morris worked for him, they used to poll test everything, including where they should go on vacation. According to the New York Times, when Hillary Clinton sat down for an interview with NBC News' Andrea Mitchell, she refused to say that she was sorry over the email controversy. She said she's sorry for the confusion, but that's as far as she was willing to go. The New York Times claims that that videotaped interview was shown to a focus group of Democrats and independents in New Hampshire, and they didn't like it. They said it looked like she wasn't forthcoming. It looked like that she was, the scandal was going to drown out everything that she had to say, and they wanted her to say that she was sorry. So what does the campaign do? They call for an interview with David Muir. She goes on TV. Her eyes are a little bit bluer. Her lipstick is a little bit redder. Her cheeks are a little bit rosier. She says she's sorry.
Well, actually, she didn't really say she was sorry. If you go back and read through the whole thing again, it's very Clinton-esque, loaded with qualifying, where you can absolutely drown in qualifying words when listening to the Clintons explain themselves over anything. What she said was, in retrospect, it might not have been a good decision. She started off with the words, I'm sorry. She used them. She's educated. She knows how to say the words, I'm sorry, but she also knows how to then launch into a complete defense of why she's really not sorry. At least she abandoned the whole just the Republicans talking about this shtick and I'm being victimized shtick and that whole shtick. But all it was just this minor little decision. But I'm still being really forthcoming about everything. As you mentioned, she didn't talk about the wiped server, the erased emails, anything else. That was not an apology. It may be an apology to a casual observer, and the press is certainly running with the whole she said she was sorry thing, but she didn't say she was sorry. There was no I'm sorry there at all. That's kind of like a you brought this on yourself sort of thing.
You know, Scott, different scandals apply to different candidates in different ways. Hillary Clinton's Achilles heel is that she's untrustworthy. People think she's a liar. This scandal may not be a big deal for someone like Bernie Sanders if he was doing it, or other candidates, maybe Jeb Bush or Donald Trump. But for Hillary Clinton, this could be a fatal death blow because people are already onto her and people are already not believing her. Do you think this scandal could end her campaign?
It has the potential to do that. I think it's got to amp up even more than it already has for that to happen. You know, you mentioned Jeb Bush. My understanding is when Jeb Bush's time for governor, he released every communication he had in his service as governor. So he's not going to have this kind of problem because he's been forthcoming. And the problem is Hillary Clinton has not been forthcoming. And the key test of an apology is, what is it that you believe you did wrong? And Cruiser's absolutely right. She starts off with the words, I'm sorry, because David Muir softball tosses that to her and says, wouldn't you like to say that? Wouldn't you like to say that it was a mistake? And can you tell us about your mother again so that your new blue contact lenses will make you tear up? She says she's sorry, but at no point does she say anything about which she should be sorry because she's followed all the guidelines. So she didn't do anything wrong. What she did was allowed. She didn't knowingly send anything that was marked classified. So what is it that Hillary Clinton is sorry about? And that question should be pressed by an actual journalist instead of this clown who's, you know, essentially part of her campaign staff.
You know, in poll position, we went over all the latest polling numbers. Hillary Clinton is now losing to Bernie Sanders outside the margin of error in New Hampshire. She's losing to Bernie Sanders in Iowa. This is the first poll I've seen that shows her behind him. She's losing in a general election to Donald Trump by 4 or 5 points, according to Survey USA. And other Democrats, including Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden, also lose in a general election matchup to Donald Trump. Is this scandal not only bringing Hillary Clinton down in the primary, but bringing the Democrats down in the general?
I think it may be at the moment. What worries me about the Democrats the most is they always seem to find a way to get somebody to fall on their sword, and then it's all over, and then it's the hive mind, and then they're back. You see what you think are little weaknesses. You know, we saw that leading up to the Obamacare vote in 2010. You really thought that there might be some faltering here, and then there were people willing to abandon their careers just to get that legislation pushed through. And that happens with the Democrats time and time again. And now they've already got somebody who's willing to plead the fifth. You're right, he's probably not going to take a deal. The Clintons have an inexhaustible supply of people who will take the fall for them. And that's what worries me about this. Scott's right. It needs to amp up a lot. And I don't think amping it up isn't 2 softball interviews in a row. The press really still isn't going after this. Only the New York Times has been on this, and they're not nudging, they're not moving the needle for NBC News or anybody else to do it. So I don't know if it's big enough. At the moment, this early, it's dragging them down a little bit. In the end, I don't know if it will.
You know, Scott, every time I see the mainstream media talk about Donald Trump and whatever his feud is of the day, they say, oh, this is the last straw. The public won't put up with him saying nasty things about Megyn Kelly. They won't put up with him getting involved in a feud with John McCain. They won't put up with what he's doing to poor Lindsey Grahamnesty. They won't put up with any of his other feuds. I guess the most current one that he's involved with is Carly Fiorina. They say each one of these scandals is going to end his candidacy. He's going to drop out. It's going to be over. Yet Donald Trump's numbers keep going up. All I've been hearing from the mainstream media is, oh, this Hillary Clinton email thing, it's no big deal. She's going to survive it. It has destroyed her polling numbers. This has not only proven Hillary Clinton's campaign to be inept, it's also proven all the pundits to be inept, hasn't it?
Yeah, I believe so. And I think, you know, the American public will put up with a lot. But what they won't put up with is somebody who lies to their face and seems to revel in it. You know, and going beyond what I was saying about, you know, apologizing for something that she's not specific about, think about that phrase, I take responsibility. Well, I take responsibility is what Al-Qaeda says after something blows up. they don't really take responsibility. They're almost bragging about it. They are bragging about it. And in this case, in what way has Hillary Clinton taken responsibility? She has not changed a single thing from last week and her approach to this crisis to this week, except she's now using words like sorry and responsibility. I think that there are a lot of people in the Democratic Party right now and in their sycophants in the media who are saying, okay, who do we have on the bench? And, the manager's walking over to pick up that phone in the dugout and call out to the bullpen.
How frustrated is Bill Clinton right now as he's watching this campaign come undone
I'm glad
for a
you brought that
second
up,
time?
because that's what I wanted to say right now. He's very frustrated because the reason the Clintons have always been able to get away with this is because Bill is so charming. Bill could sell you whatever he wanted to sell you that moment. He's a very charming, effervescent kind of guy. He's gregarious. People like talking to him. He's the guy you hate politically but want to hang out with. Hillary is not that. Hillary can't keep going with the Clinton ways. That's the only thing that gives me hope that this might actually break her, is because she is so the opposite of her husband. She is not a people person. She's just the reason there are so many awful pinched face pictures of Hillary is because she's got an awful pinched face. She's like that all the time. She's dismissive. She's imperious. She doesn't like other people. This whole populist mantra of hers now with I'm going to fight. She doesn't want to fight for it. She doesn't care. She would walk over your soon-to-be expired body to get to what she wants to get to. She would step on anybody. It doesn't matter. So the fact that she is perhaps the least likable human being since Roger Goodell gives me hope that this might not play out well for her. That's the only. So, and Bill, who wants this to be his third term, has got to be frustrated because she has none of his political skills.
Scott, something tells me that Bill's a total rageaholic behind the scenes as he's watching this campaign just come apart at the seams.
Well, if we know anything about Bill Clinton, we know that he never stays frustrated for long. He always finds extracurricular ways to soothe his frustrated feelings. So I don't think, and ask Monica. But I think that Bill is a political user and manipulator, and he is, I'm sure, every day sending messages to Hillary's people saying, hey, why don't you do this? Why don't you go after so-and-so? Why don't you stop, change the narrative about the attack on Hillary to be an attack on someone else?
All right, Scott Ott gets the last word. That's all the time we have for today, but now it's your turn. Can this more humble, more human Hillary act save her campaign and win back America's trust? Tell us what you think in the comments section below. I'm John Phillips. Thanks so much for watching The Rundown.